Welcome to another episode of Franky the Crafter. Oh man, was this one hard to edit. This week, we'll put our skills to the test with something we've already learned. This week we're making a Forrest Guardian. Let's get crafty. But before you do, don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying the content. This right here is a tube left over from aluminum roll. And I have some leftover foam board that I'll be using as well. Cut a few pieces like planks. We'll be using some of these for roots. So let's get right into it. I'm planning on having most of the roots facing forward. My reasoning here is that the tree is pulling itself forward with the roots. I cut one main piece for my roots, but I will be adding more later. I'm gluing a few of the scraps here to angle the roots just a bit. And then hot glue my main piece. Then I start gluing the roots. Bend your roots so that they don't look boring or flat. I glue another piece of foam board around the trunk to get rid of the gap I caused by angling the roots. When you're gluing the roots, I advise you not to go overboard. It will get difficult to plaster them if you have too many. I jump over to work on the base for the face. And so I cut out a piece that sort of looks like a shield. I glue some of the scraps on top. I try to go for a crown look here. I add another layer for the face, but only on the top half. I want to make it look like his mouth is open. I also cut a small section for the nose, like a skull nose. I start gluing the teeth, which are just small blocks of foam board. I just hot glue them in. For the bottom jaw, I go for one solid piece. This right here is something you've seen before. Use thick string and hot glue it right onto the trunk. I only do 2 of them for the front for now. I start working on the arms first so that I can build the texture of the trunk around the arms. I use wire and some aluminum to add some volume. I also add hot glue on the wire before wrapping it up. I don't know if this actually helps, I just like doing it. I glue the end of the aluminum once I wrap them up. I should have probably pinned the arm, but I just hot glue it in. And then I do the same for the other arm. I start cutting smaller planks to put around the face. And then I just finish up adding the texture for the stump's bark. I then start adding facial features. I use pearl beads for the eyes. I also add a bit of clay to make it less two-dimensional. I use a bit of water to make sure that my clay sticks to the foam board. I also use the water to blend the clay onto the foam board. I add a nose, but try to make it look like a skull's nose. I fail, but that's okay. Here, you're welcome to make them as angry or as happy as you would like. That's the great thing about building your minis. You can give them whatever personality you'd like. Let's move on to crafting the hands. Start out with a small ball of aluminum for the palms. And cut a few pieces of wire for the fingers. Poke a hole in the aluminum ball and stick the wire in. I bend the wires just a bit to make his hands look a bit more dramatic. I use crazy glue and baking soda to solidify it. Do the same for the rest of the fingers. I only did 3 fingers and a thumb for each hand. To give them more volume, I add a bit of aluminum and use my baking soda and crazy glue technique. When you are done, glue the hands right into the arms, again, using crazy glue and baking soda. First thing you want to do here before continuing is prepare your workspace for the mess that comes with working with plaster. I put down a cardboard and put on some gloves. We're gonna do one last touch here by wrapping a thick string around the arms. Let's make the plaster. 1 part water, 2 part plaster of Paris. I also add a little bit of glue. I like to start out with a small amount of water and work my way up to a pancake mix texture. Using the same technique I used in the video for the tree stumps, I add the paper towel plaster to my monster here. The difference with this step really comes down to the roots. This is where you want to switch over to toilet paper. Make sure to cover the roots as much as possible. When the plaster dries, you want these to be as strong as possible. And again, if you need extra tips on how to paint the stump section of the monster, check out the tree stump video. I'll try to cover only the differences in this video. Let's start with the most obvious difference. This tree has a face. I put an undercoat of yellow before I add my brown wash, but I only add the brown wash on the low lights. I then paint an almost neon green on some of the highlights. I also carefully add low lights to the eyes using black acrylic inks. It almost applies like a wash. I make sure to get this ink into all the cracks in the face. I use an earthy green to paint the string I placed on the arm. This has essentially become a vine. Using a yellow from the face, I add highlights. The last thing I do on the arms is go back and add solid shadows under the string to add contrast between the arms and the vine. Add your grass on the roots like we did before and make your base. I have to say that I actually didn't like the way my base came out. It ended up warping a bit, so I would suggest not using foam board for this project. Use something a little bit more firm. We are adding some leaves to the tree. Now, I want to say that there are probably ways to add this better. This is just the way I do it. This is one of my weak points as a crafter, in which I don't have a lot of experience. I'm using steel wool for where I'll be gluing the leaves. I coated using Black Magic's Crafts Mod Podge mix. And then using Mod Podge alone, I start adding some homemade foliage. After it's glued, spray it with a mixture of water and PVA glue to solidify it. And just like that, you're all set. Thank you very much again for everything. I hope you enjoyed the video. Special thanks to TheDungeonMattster for becoming a Patreon. He has a channel here on YouTube. I'll link it in the description below. And like always, if you have any questions or you're stuck on one of these projects, hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Especially on Instagram, you might find some better reference pictures there. Like always, catch you on the flippity side.